Hello and welcome to another Magic Duels Origins gameplay. Today we're taking a look at a blue-white Skies deck which features a lot of flying creatures, and the centerpiece of the deck is the card Thunderclap Wyvern, which is a flash flyer for 4 mana that gives all other creatures you control with flying +1/+1, which is quite nice if you consider we have access to cards like Whirler Rogue that makes multiple flying creatures with just 1 card, and the slightly worse version is Aspiring Aeronaut, which also has 2 flyers for just 1 card. So we're trying to go wide in the skies, and let's take a look at the rest of the deck here, starting with our 1-drops, where we have a Kytheon, Hero of Akros, which might seem like a weird inclusion in a flyers deck, but because we have so many cards that generate multiple flyers, it's very easy to transform him into a Planeswalker, and once he does transform into a Planeswalker, we have access to Gideon Battleforged, which is just a very powerful card considering we just spent 1 mana and maybe 3 mana to make him indestructible, because then we can keep flyers on defense, we can attack with a 4/4 indestructible, or we can force the opponent to attack Gideon and save us a lot of life. So just a very versatile and powerful card for 1 mana. Then taking a look at our 2-drops, we have Perilous Myr, which is basically our ground defense in this deck. This makes it difficult for the opponent to attack us on the ground, while we can attack the opponent in the air. So that's all the Perilous Myr is doing, and it's also an artifact which is relevant, as we'll see in just a bit. Our other 2-drop is Dauntless River Marshal, which also doesn't have flying, but it's most of the time going to be a 3/2 for 2 mana, which is quite efficient, and his activated ability also comes in handy when we're trying to race with the opponent. Being able to pay 4 mana to tap our opponent's largest creature can save us a lot of life and gives us some late game advantage. Then we have a flyer in the 2-drop slot, Welkin Tern, just 2/1 flyer that can only block other flyers, but that's not very relevant since we want to be attacking with Welkin Tern anyways. So just a 2-power flyer for 2 mana is quite efficient. Then in the 3-drop slot we have access to Skyhunter Skirmisher, which is a 1/1 double striker, which is especially nice when we couple it with the Thunderclap Wyvern, because when the Skyhunter Skirmisher gets +1/+1, now he suddenly attacks for 4 damage instead of just 2. So it gets doubled, which is nice. And we have some other anthem effects that also improve the Skirmisher even more. Our other 3-drop flyer is Scrapskin Drake, another similar card to Welkin Tern, can only block creatures with flying, but it's a 2/3 flyer for 3 mana, which means he can't get easily dealt with by burn spells. Then we also have a removal spell in Claustrophobia, 3 mana to tap down a creature permanently, so pretty efficient for just 3 mana, can tap down any creature of any size. And our final 3-drop is Kytheon's Tactics, which gives all creatures we control +2/+1 until end of turn. The spell mastery is probably never gonna come up, but just being able to give all our flyers 2 additional power means we want to use this when we're trying to finish off the opponent, and coupled with cards like Skyhunter Skirmisher with double strike, this can deal quite a bit of damage out of nowhere. And then we get to our 4-drops, where we have an Archangel of Tithes, which is triple white, so it's not very easy to cast, so we will not be able to cast this reliably on turn 4, but it's a very powerful card and also a flyer that survives Languish, which most of our other cards don't, so quite powerful. Then we get to our artifact generators like Whirler Rogue and the Aspiring Aeronaut, which make multiple flyers for just 1 card, which is also nice with the Kytheon's Tactics, of course. And then we have Thunderclap Wyvern, which is the centerpiece, gives most of our creatures +1/+1, also has flash, so can surprise opponents. Then we get to our final card, which is Tragic Arrogance, and this is where the Perilous Myr being an artifact comes in, because with the Tragic Arrogance we can actually keep 2 creatures, 1 an artifact creature and 1 a regular creature, and only leave the opponent with a single creature, which might also be enchanted with Claustrophobia, So the Tragic Arrogance is quite an advantageous card in this deck, and with cards like Whirler Rogue and Aspiring Aeronaut making artifact creatures, it's very easy to leave yourself with multiple creatures. So this helps against those other swarm decks like Thopters and Elves. And then the mana base, we're running 8 plains, 8 islands, 2 Glacial Fortress, the full 4 Azorius Guildgate, and because our mana requirements are quite steep with double white and double blue, we're also running 2 Evolving Wilds to further help our mana base. So that's the deck. Now let's jump into some games and see how we do. Alright, this is an easy mulligan. This is an easy keep. We have double blue and double white already. We have a decent curve of Marshal into Skirmisher into hopefully Whirler Rogue. And a Perilous Myr in case we have need for a blocker. Let's start with the plains. Opponent on mountain into a Foundry of the Consuls. So could be mono red, just playing this for value. Could be a blue red artifact deck. And yeah, I think I like playing out the River Marshal here. Opponent could have a Twin Bolt and kill it, but that's fine. Instead it's a Fiery Impulse taking it out. It's also fine. So if our opponent does have a Twin Bolt as well, we do have to be careful not to play out both Perilous Myr and Skyhunter Skirmisher because they're both 1 toughness. Alright, opponent stuck on 2 lands. And Archangel is a nice draw here. So I think I like playing the Perilous Myr here. So if our opponent does have a removal spell and wants to use it, he doesn't get to kill our Skirmisher. Opponent did reveal a Twin Bolt, but decides not to use it, which is fine. So our opponent might just be mono red or is just stuck on 1 color and kept a greedy hand. Still 2 lands. And let's go to combat. And now we have the option of playing Whirler Rogue or the Archangel, but I think we want to play out the Archangel here, since there's no removal spells that easily kill it. So yeah, Twin Bolt on the Perilous Myr, deal 2 to the opponent. And unless our opponent is red-black and gets to play Reef Soul here, this Archangel is gonna stay in play for a while and gonna make it difficult for the opponent to block. And still on 2 lands. Alright, think we attack and then play Whirler Rogue. Could also go Skirmisher into Perilous Myr, but again we have the Twin Bolt problem. So I think Whirler Rogue slightly better. So for opponent Twin Bolts here, we still have a 2/2 left. And if this Skirmisher can survive for a turn, if we can follow it up with Kytheon's Tactics, that's gonna be a lot of damage. Alright, another removal spell taking out our Whirler Rogue. Alright, let's attack. And hope our opponent ran out of Twin Bolts. And I think playing Perilous Myr over Welkin Tern makes it a little less bad for us if he does have a Twin Bolt. Alright, so looks to be an artifact deck after all. So Chief of the Foundry. And let's see, how much does Kytheon's tactics deal here? So this is 6 plus another 5, that's 11. So yeah, our opponent's just dead. Even if he does block our Perilous Myr. And yeah, our opponent got stuck on 2 lands for a while and couldn't kill all our creatures. And yeah, let's move on to the next one. Alright, let's take a look at our opening hand, which is a little bit awkward, but I think it's keepable. We can play this turn 2, this on the 3rd turn, and this on the 4th one. So we have a curve. Play Guildgate and pass. And we do get to flip Kytheon once we can attack with both flyers from the Aeronaut. Up against Goblin Arsonist, which is not really what we want to see with a Kytheon in hand. But hopefully this eats a removal spell that would otherwise kill the Skirmisher. So let's go ahead and play Kytheon. And pass the turn. If the opponent attacks, then we get to trade 2 damage for 1 damage. But yeah, this Visionary is gonna make it a bad attack, so now our opponent can freely attack if he wants to. Because we're certainly not gonna block. And we're also not attacking into this Visionary. So Kytheon not doing a whole lot right now. But hopefully that will change in a few turns. So the opponent's red-green, so could have some big scary creatures. What we could do is attack and threaten to activate the indestructibility rather than play out the Skirmisher, which I don't hate. So let's try that. Because our opponent's likely to have a removal spell for a Skirmisher, and otherwise we trade 3 mana for an Elvish Visionary, which also isn't bad. So yeah, our opponent just takes it. And now we get to play our Skirmisher after all. And next turn we get to play the Aeronaut, which should make it easy to transform Kytheon at some point. Alright, I'd like to see another Elvish Visionary, because that means we're not getting twin bolted. An attack for 2, or just for 1. And we could block here, but then we lose one of our creatures to the Arsonist, so we're not gonna do that. So that's why our opponent did not attack with the Visionary. Alright, another land, which is not really what we need. We could again try and attack with Kytheon, but this time our opponent is likely to block, given that he has 2 Visionaries. So I think I just like playing the Aeronaut after attacking with the Skirmisher. And now, if our opponent does have removal, is gonna be tempted to use it on Kytheon, because otherwise we can flip him next turn. So our opponent takes 2, and we play the Aeronaut. Next turn we can play Perilous Myr and make Kytheon indestructible. So does our opponent have a removal or a way to sacrifice the Arsonist? 4th land, and there's an Acid Moss, which destroys one of our lands, which we don't really care about, and ramps our opponent for 1. But doesn't have a way to deal with Kytheon. And this attack is certainly not correct, because our opponent could have kept the Arsonist on defense, then if we attack with Kytheon and 2 flyers, our opponent can block with the Arsonist and shoot down our Skirmisher. Instead now we just get to attack and not lose any creature. So that's quite nice. So if our opponent blocks, we make him indestructible, our opponent doesn't. And now we get to transform Gideon. Alright, there we go. So let's see. I think we want to just make a creature indestructible. And I think we want to make the Skyhunter Skirmisher indestructible. So let's play out the Scrapskin Drake. And untap the Skyhunter Skirmisher and make it indestructible until our next turn. And now we have a powerful flying army plus a Gideon, giving us some sweet abilities. Opponent plays Zenikar's Royal, plays a land, gets an elemental token, but we don't really care about that since we're attacking in the air. So if we do block here, our opponent gets to kill our Thopter token, so I'll just take the 1 damage here. Gideon drops to 3. Still more lands. Alright, so we attack with everyone, our opponent takes 6. Could also attack with Gideon, but I think I would just want to plus him again. So let's attack. So our opponent's down to 4 life. And we get a Perilous Myr, which also threatens to deal 2 damage. And again, I'll make the Skyhunter Skirmisher. Oh, that's the wrong ability. There we go. Pass the turn. And I'm not sure how our opponent gets out of this. Yeah. This certainly doesn't do it. So our opponent on some sort of land destruction deck. But yeah, flying creatures are quite good, as it turns out. Opponent attacks with all those. We get to block like this. And deal 2 damage to our opponent, might as well. And let's attack. Alright, sweet. Let's move on to the next one. Alright, let's take a look at our opening hand, which is decent. We don't have an island to pump up the River Marshal yet, but we do have triple white for the Archangel, so I think I'll keep. Lead with the Guildgate and pass the turn. Next turn we have to decide whether we want to play the River Marshal or the Welkin Tern. Opponent on blue mana. I think I'll lead with a Welkin Tern since we have a second one. And pass. We don't want to see red mana from the opponent because Twin Bolt is quite punishing for this draw. Especially since we don't have an island yet. There it is. Alright, our opponent has his own Welkin Tern. An island is not bad. So yeah, let's offer the trade here. Hope our opponent accepts. Does not. Yeah, I think we do have to play out one of our creatures, even though Twin Bolt is a disaster. Although, never mind, we can just play Island and play River Marshal, which now has 2 toughness. So Twin Bolt would only kill one of them. So that's the reason to play it over the other Welkin Tern here. Alright, Harbinger bounces Welkin Tern. So nice tempo play from the opponent. But next turn we get to play out the Archangel, which kind of blanks this. Alright, pumps it up with Titan Strength. Gives it +3 power and a Scry 1. So we go down to 15. Alright, also interesting. So I think if we attack, our opponent just accepts the trade here. But I'm actually fine with that. Our opponent might just take the damage, given that he's ahead on the damage race here. So now we get to play Glacial Fortress and pass a turn and try and get our opponent with the Wyvern. Alright, now we get to choose which creature we kill. Unless our opponent has a response, he does. Alright, that's fine. So, could have also just played the Whirler Rogue last turn. Our opponent looks to be very aggressive. So maybe also playing the Archangel here is fine, given that it requires our opponent to pay 1. Yeah, let's just play the Archangel and slow down our opponent a little bit. And here I don't think I'm interested in trading for the bully. Now this is an interesting interaction. So this has to attack every turn, but our opponent has to pay 1. So now I'm not sure if our opponent is forced to attack and pay 1 or not. Looks like he is. So our opponent could have a burn spell combined with prowess to kill the Archangel, so I think I'll just block here, even though it's not great, but don't want to lose the Archangel. Alright, another bully. And now we get to play Whirler Rogue, which I think I like over playing anything else. And then once we get to play the Wyvern, we pump up all our flyers, and that should be pretty good. Twin Bolt kills those, so our opponent did have the combat trick last turn and decided not to keep it in hand to take care of the Archangel, possibly. Alright, our opponent pays. So here I think I'll block like this. So if our opponent does have a trick, he has to use it here to save the Harbinger, and our Archangel still gets to eat the Majoring Bully. Our opponent did have a trick, but now these at least trade. Alright, so our opponent got some nice draws, but now we get to finally stabilize. Opponent knows we have this in hand, but no need to play it main phase. Alright, let's play this end step. And let's offer the trade for our Welkin Tern. And play another one. Alright, Now we still have a Claustrophobia for a big creature. And we have some pretty good draws. Any of our Thopter generators is great with the Thunderclap in play. So our opponent does have a spell, but decided not to play it, while we keep drawing lands. So let's attack. Opponent might kill the Welkin Tern, maybe. Nope, just takes it. Pass the turn. We're flooding out a little bit. And we don't have something like a River Marshal in play to really use our spare mana. But that's fine. Attack again. Play Perilous Myr. And pass. Disperse on Welkin Tern makes sense, but your opponent's still dead on board. And a 1 creature is not gonna do it. There's Tragic Arrogance, which right now would be good, except that our opponent doesn't have any creatures in play, so Fiery Impulse takes down our Wyvern. And now we just play out Welkin Tern, pause the turn. Let's attack. Alright, there we go. I wanna thank you for watching, I hope you enjoyed this gameplay, and as always, have a nice day.